Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mickey Nakamura, and I'll be your host for today's session. I'm very honored and humbled to be here. We have a couple of PMO influencers we'll be having a coffee chat, a conversation with, starting with Joe, and then we also have Rami. So I'd like to give Joe. Joe, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Mickey, and hello, everybody. It's fantastic to be here and extremely humbled to be named one of the top 15 PMO Influencers of the Year. As Mickey said, my name is Joe Pusz. They call me PMO Joe, and I'm the president of the PMO Squad. We're a project management consulting firm in Phoenix, Arizona, here in the United States. I also host Project Management Office Hours, which is a live radio show podcast where we focus on project management and PMO leaders, and also author of the PurposeDriven PMO, a framework to help PMO leaders, regardless of industry or size company, execute well within your PMO. So I'm very happy to be here with Rami and yourself and look forward to a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Joe. Rami?
Thanks, Mickey. My name is Rami, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm very thrilled and honored to be named as one of the top 15 influencers, PMO influencers of 2020. I have more than 15 years of experience in project management, and I work as a project management consultant, and I also have my own company for career coaching and professional development. I am the founder and executive coach of RMK Coaching.
Great. Thank you so much. And just a little bit about myself. I have 18 years of PMO experience, so I'll be able to add some commentary here and there in support of you guys. So thank you so much. I think we wanted to have a some chats about this pandemic crisis that we're living in. This COVID-19 world that we're living in, it really highlights certain trends and certain things that we're seeing in the PMO area, globally, regionally, locally. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to discuss some of the things that you're seeing. Rami, if I can have you provide, what are some of the trends, or what are some of the things you're seeing in demand right now during this crisis that we're in?
I see lots of demand now for virtual support and lots of demand for third-party PMOs. What I mean by that is when everybody was put on the spot during the pandemic, many organizations had to lay off so many people. And now that things are going, most of them are going virtually, they discovered that having a third-party consulting PMO provide support for the organizations. It's much better, less liability for the company, especially in a time of uncertainty like the time we're living in right now. This is the major trend I've seen so far.
Thank you so much. And Joe, what about you?
Yeah, echo what Rami's saying. Here in the States, we're seeing similar reaction, right? A lot of PMOs are working on a different budget than they might have had at the beginning of the year. Their portfolio has had adjustments throughout the year. Priorities to working in a remote workforce might be more important than the CRM system at the beginning of the year, right? So as we've shifted through priorities and staffing and budgets, we had to find ways to increase the expertise within in-house PMO. And our firm PMO Squad and some of the peer organizations that we know here within the US have noticed an uptick in business because we're out there supporting clients to ensure that they can keep progress moving forward while they may have had a reduction in headcount, but they might not have had a reduction in budget, right? So how do they use that budget to offset the loss of heads on their team, which of course is always unfortunate, but the consultants can come in there and help. And the side benefit of that is then we can employ some of those project management resources that were let go by their home company.
Great, thank you for that. I mirror a lot of what you both are saying. I think at my own organization, for example, we've had to augment our current team with some outside help, right? And some of this help is notable in certain areas like crisis management or security, things like that, that are part of the pandemic support. Are there certain industry areas or verticals that you see that requires more help from your organizations? And I'll go back to Rami on this one.
Generally speaking, most of the organizations, generally speaking, are shifting into this direction, at least the ones that I know of. In the industry I work in, which is basically real estate developments and business development, we've seen now lots of demand because we work with the health sector a lot with senior developments. And now with the amount of projects going on from lessons learned in senior communities, there is lots of fund from the government, so they can start pursuing some of the projects for residential care and supportive living. And usually government and the non-for-profit organizations, they do hire project management consulting companies like to manage their projects and be like virtual or third-party PMOs. So we've been busier than ever during this pandemic. And like the RFPs that are being issued are unbelievable. So I've never seen amount of work and RFPs issued as much as I've seen lately.
I see. And Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of the things Rami mentioned, but I'll add to that, right? Part of PMOs that are within organizations are having to find a new way to execute, right? You can't have that team meeting where everybody's together and you're collaborating the way you used to. So in addition to providing resources, one of the things we're finding is that there's help needed on how do we communicate with stakeholders in a remote setting? How do we communicate with our team members in a remote setting? What different tools do we utilize, right? Zoom and WebEx and different collaboration tools, Slack and Microsoft Teams are becoming more important. And, I do my radio show, so I talk to a lot of guests from around the world, and it's almost like a mentoring session in every one of them. And we had Elizabeth Heron on recently from the UK, and she mentioned that, she has to, during the day, maybe go put a load of laundry in, and it's in between meetings. And 9 months ago, we would never have done that, right? We would have been too afraid. It would have been, I have to focus on work for 8 consecutive hours. But in our new normal, what we're finding within our PMOs is it's part of our life. If we're working at home, then we're home at home. And my children are home with me, and I do laundry and I make lunch. But guess what? I can still deliver on my projects. So the new normal isn't just a change in where we get our staffing from. It's also how do we utilize the skills and staff that we have, because we have to keep delivering. We have to keep executing.
I like what you're saying, Joe, because in my organization, the new normal is not just, like you said, not just working remotely. It's a new way of doing things. It's embracing a culture change. The people side of things becomes a little bit confusing when you're working from home and you have kids in the background and all these different challenges that you perhaps didn't have when you're in the office. But I think the good news is most folks have adapted, or they're in the process of adapting. It kind of brings me to my next point. Rami, can you elaborate on what has been the people side of change? I know we refer to things like this as change management or transformation. What have you seen in terms of the change management part of PMOs, and how has that been impacted by the period that we're in right now?
That's a very interesting question. And the most shift I've seen is in the technological advancements. So many of the organizations were not so agile. They were a bit rigid and not flexible in the way they do things, just like Joseph just said. So now with all these things going on, they had to change the way they work, the way they interact with each other, and the way they manage and engage with their stakeholders. For example, now we do most of our meetings using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or GoToMeetings. And this, in fact, when the pandemic started, it was so challenging because so many of those infrastructure programs did not have all the tools needed. And I'll give you just one example of how people interact. Like, there is a small feature that Microsoft Teams just added to their platform, which is a hand shape where somebody in a meeting can push the button and it shows for everybody. For example, Rami raised his hand in case he wants to ask something. Before, when we started, you had to raise your hand and you had to probably jump in so you can say something. And it's something small like this makes a big difference when there are 10 people in the session. I mean, the good thing is that the platform developers are listening, and they are making interaction between people, and they are making the agility and the shift and the change easier to adapt to than when we started. I mean, I'm pretty much sure Joe deals with the same thing all the time, right, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely, Rami. And I think it puts also a bigger spotlight on the PMO leader, right? To be able to lead in a period of chaos. What leadership skills do you have, right? The project management world is often focused on project execution, right? But not leadership. Our PMO leaders haven't been trained to be leaders. Oftentimes they've been project managers promoted into a leadership role. So now, if we think of agile versus traditional, well, in the agile space, it's people over process.
Yeah.
In the traditional space, PMI is shifting to a more principled approach with PMBOK 7 that's coming out. Mm-hmm. So how are we as PMO leaders going to shift and adapt to put people over process, right? That 75-page playbook that we used to build to tell you exactly how to execute the A-size project versus the C-size project and how to do your portfolio management. Well, now we have to trust our teams more, right? We have to empower our people in a remote setting because I can't micromanage them, right? I got promoted because I was a great project manager and I'm going to manage my team like I managed a project. Well, I can't do that, right? So the way I am a boss changes, just as the way I was as a project manager on a project team. So technology is changing, process is changing, leadership is changing. COVID's creating a new normal. What I think it's all for the benefit because it's forcing us to trust our team more. And I think we as an industry will benefit when we allow the PMs in our PMO to go execute without tying their hands around a rigid process.
You guys have a great point. One of the things that the pandemic has resulted in is my team and I, my organization, we had to re-examine our guiding principles and our values, right? And we had to look at our values in terms of trust, in terms of our vision. We had to apply that when it came to our strategic portfolios and programs. I mean, what you're saying is spot on. If you don't have that trust, this remote learning environment that we're in, falls apart, right? But if you do have that trust, and now we're layering that trust with productivity from working remotely. I mean, you guys are just spot on with what you're saying in terms of having the people side, not just the transactional project management side. What do you think are some additional challenges that you've seen during this period? And I'll switch gears. I'll start with you, Joe. Why don't you start on this one, and then Rami, please chime in.
Well, I think the key here is what's the actual portfolio we're working on, right? If you were in let's just say an IT PMO, where most PMOs unfortunately live today and not at the enterprise level, you may not have any IT initiatives that you're working on, right? What if that IT portfolio is gone? So you may be outside your comfort zone and they may ask you to work on a marketing project, or they may ask you to work on a construction project within your campus that you're part of, if you're in the healthcare industry, for example.
That doesn't resemble us, by the way. But
yeah. So the challenge, one of the challenge, right, is how do I get out of the normal project structure I've been in and learn how to go execute within a different discipline? And of course, my thoughts on that is it doesn't matter the size of the project, the industry you're in, the size of the company you're in. a project is define the problem, design the solution, build the solution, validate the solution, deploy it, right? We can do that in any specialty. Does it help to have a special skill set, especially in construction, perhaps? Sure. But I want to challenge my people, right? I want to stretch them and see who can take on new opportunities.
Rami?
Like Mickey, I think Joe was spot on. I want to tell you two things. So to Joe's point, I discovered too that you have, in order to survive the competition and keep things interesting and keep moving on, these days you have to be a generalizing specialist. Which means you have to know different things. You have to go out of your comfort zone. It's no more one size fit all, or one a focus is on one thing. Because as Joe said, I've seen this too, that organizations want to survive. They can shift from IT to construction to healthcare. It depends. And you can shift too within your own consulting company. You can have a client who deals with IT, another client deals with construction. On the other hand, what I've seen too is the skills that are needed are different in a sense that now there is less focus on technical skills and more focus on your soft skills. Like for me to be able to virtually manage a design meeting for 20 people on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, it takes lots of facilitation skills and lots of emotional intelligence to be able to manage a meeting like that. And frankly speaking, I've never been tested in my soft skills more than I've been tested in the past few months. And I improved a lot. But was I ready? I think not. This is something many were struck with, that they had to use their soft skills 90% more than they used to use them before.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, Rami. And the reality is that part has always been true, but we as PMO leaders never focused on it.
Exactly.
Right. And this is giving us as PMO leaders an opportunity to really focus on what's important. Right. It's same with, I'm guilty as charged. I've got a family with 4 children and they're very active, and I don't have time beyond the normal windows to go read and stay up to date on everything that's being written within our industry. Well, guess what the pandemic did? It gave me a little bit more time because I don't have to commute an hour in the morning and the hour in the evening. So with that extra time, I'm reading more, I'm listening to more podcasts, I'm attending more conferences, right? All of those things are helping me personally with the power skills, the soft skills, and I can move away from the technical skills. And I think every PMO leader out there, the challenge should be for them and their team. How can we put the focus where it belonged all along and put the technical skills secondary where it should have been all along?
Joe, you reminded me of an article I read yesterday on BlackBerry. The BlackBerry stock, everybody's saying they are doing excellent things, but the stock is not going up. So the article name is, they don't concentrate on what matters.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing right now. The same thing that's happening. You need to concentrate on what matters, 100%.
What you guys are saying has surfaced in a number of areas in my space. Some of the things that we've worked on that were on a 1 to 2 to 3 year timeline, we've had to scrunch in months, if not weeks. And if you're just a PMO leader that kind of is focused on the timeline, it's not going to work, right? Because they're just looking at a 3-year roadmap. We need things now that have to be that are revolving around what can we do to support our community during a time of crisis. And so I think it's very key that the PMO leader has those leadership soft skills that you guys are talking about, not just a transactional, I got to do it by the PM box standards, right? We also have to be aware, Rami, I like what you said, right? Emotional awareness or intelligence, with your organization, with the people you work with yourself. I find that I forget about myself, and before I know it, it's almost dinner time and we didn't eat or we didn't take a break, right? So can you tell me a little bit about the impact of this system that we're in with regards to your personal life or your family lives? I mean, how are you coping, or what's your recommendations on the family life and work life balance in what you're seeing? And Rami, I'll start with you.
Or maybe this is something you guys can weigh more about because you are married with kids. I assume I'm single, but it still had an effect on me. So I'll give you just an example. In the beginning, I had so many issues that I was working from home because we're not used to that. We were put on the spot, so we had to adapt to working from home. And like Joe said, companies, whether they like it or not, they had to give their individuals and teams more trust so they can be self-organizing. Without trusting their teams and having them be self-organizing, things wouldn't have worked. The good thing is that with this current setting where you work from home and you have trust from your organization, you establish your way of work. Like the Disciplined Agile book says, your way of work. You choose your way of work. And your way of work maybe best says, do some work in the morning, go run at 11 o'clock, come back, continue your job, have dinner, do some more work. You pace out the way you feel more fit. And guess what? Now I read a report a few days ago. The productivity for people who were working from office using the office hours 8 to 5, and now the productivity for those same people now working from home and having their own way of work is 50% more. So it did. There is now. It took a few months before I established a personal work-life balance, but I think I'm at a good phase right now where I think I'm being more productive.
Yeah, I agree, Rami. I'm more productive as well. Slightly different mindset, right? I mentioned I had 4 children, and I think we as professionals often, when we leave the door in the morning to go to work, we become our professional self, and when we come home at the end of the day, we then become our personal selves once again. Yeah. And now we're bringing those two worlds together. And I think my message to everybody is family is always first. Yep. Work is always secondary. And if you have a happy home or personal life, that's going to bleed over into your professional life, right? If you're miserable at home, then your coworkers are going to be impacted by that. So I have 4 kids at home trying to do school remote. So there's the challenges, and oftentimes I'll leave instead of an hour around lunch, I'll leave 2 hours at lunch. It gives me a time during the day to check in with the kids to make sure they're getting their schoolwork done, right? Understanding that we don't have a commute anymore, like I mentioned before, right? That's an extra hour or 2 every day that we can be more productive. And I think, Rami, that ties into your point, right? If my commute is now 15 seconds out of my office, down the hall, and into my family room, right? So how is it affecting our personal lives? I think it's become our personal lives, right? Our day has now just become our day. There isn't the 2 personas. We just have a single persona, and it's the productive persona, right? How can I be productive for my family? How can I be productive for my team or my PMO that I'm running? And how can I be productive for my organization? I think this is kind of crazy. I never would have said this 6 to 9 months ago. I think we're being more valuable to our team in a remote setting. Again, let's see. We'll go another 6 or 9 months with this. We'll find out. But we've adjusted, right? The new normal is working. I think we were all afraid of that.
Go ahead, please, Rami. Go ahead.
I just want to add one more point. I mean, it's just from another point, and this is something I'm dealing with right now. So as much as we're saying also we choose our way of work and we establish a life-work balance, like Joe mentioned, we sometimes run into challenges because we have clients that were long-term clients with us and we don't want to turn them down. So we take sometimes work more than we can handle just because we want to cope up with this. And this is something we are running into at the moment. Our organization is amazing, but we have lots to do. So I was telling America yesterday, poor America had to take a few emails to schedule another session with us, because honestly, as much as we say we're not following 8 to 5, for the full month of October, my schedule is extremely busy with just meetings. So meetings can be very challenging when you have multiple projects going on. It could be very challenging at the same time. But again, this is something I think if God forbid, like Joe said, it will extend to 9 more months, the same way of working, it's going to be resolved probably, because people will start having different ways of communicating other than everybody needing anything. He wants a meeting with you.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is really profound. But the area that, since we're all talking about it, what do you think is that new normal once we have some sort of, let's say, vaccine or some sort of maybe even a cure? What do you think this new normal will be for our profession when we're given the green light to go back to our sites or to resume some sort of physical interaction? From what I'm seeing some things might not return to what we always had. Maybe there's some things that have changed. What are your thoughts on that? Joe, want to start off on that one?
Yeah, I think the world's changed forever because organizations have found two different things here. One, my teams can be productive remotely. And two, I don't have to have all the expense of maintaining a building, a lease, a campus, whatever may be tied to that, right? So the new normal, I think, is going to be some sort of blended or hybrid approach to work. We have to have a facility to go back and be able to connect with, right? But instead of a dedicated building, maybe that's a co-working space that the organization rents out as opposed to a big building. We're going to have to let people continue to work from home, right? People are used to this now. They're comfortable with it. Heck, I like wearing shorts all day long and a golf shirt on top, right? Why do I have to go into an office to be productive like that? So the hybrid approach, I think, is here to stay forever. And then we're going to probably, right, we're going to find even a new normal a year or two from now, because we'll be on the backswing of everything we just went through. So we went to one extreme, we'll come back and we'll find out what the new normal will be again, but get used to it. I don't think we're ever going back completely.
Rami, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Joe nailed it. Like, he's absolutely right. I mean, I would think, depending on the industry, some people, like some organizations, will go back to working fully virtually if they can be productive, and other companies will be hybrid between office and virtually. I mean, they can turn their offices into working stations. Everybody brings their laptop on a certain day. They attend the office if needed, whenever they have meetings, like we're doing right now. Right now in our organization, we're alternating. So we're not in the same at the same time, all of us in the office. On the other hand, I think you will see more appreciation to PMOs. Before, the appreciation for a PMO was just not very well recognized. Every organization you go talk to, you need to establish a PMO for an organization. They did not know the value of that. And not only PMOs, but virtual PMOs and third-party PMOs. So I think organizations now realized, and I know of many big organizations who realized that having a PMO is a great addition to the team, and the most efficient and effective way to doing it is to hire a third-party consultant to do that. Because when you have high uncertainty, which I highly doubt it will vanish anytime before 2 years from now, probably, this is the best way to go. And like Joe said, probably within 2 years from now, you would see another new normal. You never know. Nobody knows. We live in a very high level of uncertainty like never before.
And I think to elaborate on what Rami said, right, and take it one step further, let's give it a name. It's PMO as a service, right? 10 years ago, we said, I will never let my data outside my company walls, let alone in the same building with my competitor. But we've consolidated into data centers, right? And guess what? Your data and your competitor's data are probably on servers right next door to each other. And we're okay with that now. 20 years ago, would we have said, I'm not going to let somebody else pay my employees? My employees are the most important people in my organization. If we miss payroll, that's going to kill us. You know, we found out the third-party companies do it better. So we're never going to bring payroll back in. Legal services, tax service, all these different services, which are not the core competency of our business, we are finding oftentimes through chaos and through innovation, that the next stage is project management. Our delivery team doesn't have to be the SME. It doesn't have to be the expert, right? That's why we have BAs. That's why we have product owners. That's why we have the roles of the specialist. My organization, we can go deliver PMO as a service for any company anywhere in the world because we're trained in how to deliver, right? We're a delivery organization, just like there's payroll organizations and data centers. Absolutely, I'm with Rami on this. PMO as a service is going to increase over the next couple of years.
You guys bring up a really good point. If you recall, probably a decade and a half or so ago, there were a lot of predictions about the project and program management, PMO, which is an overarching umbrella of how it would be extinct. In fact, in my world, there are folks that told me I should find a new career. And, so I wanted to bring this topic up because it talks about the future. AI, analytics, these are all areas that we're in the midst of or starting to ramp up. What is your view on the demise of the PMO? If anything, from our conversation here, I hear it's the opposite. I hear that there's more of a demand for PMO as a service, especially with regards to this pandemic we're in. We see the need for leadership. We see the need for a horizontal organization. So what are your thoughts on that? And Rami, I'll start with you on this one. And then Joe, please chime in.
Sure.
As I mentioned before, you'll see more demand on this. I'll answer your question with a question. So when you have high level of uncertainty, and would you hire 10 people to do an internal PMO to your organization where you don't know what's going to happen in your projects, or would you contract a third-party PMO as a service to do your job? And part of the contract says if things go south, we'll pay you up to this date. There is no liability, there is no obligation, there is no overhead. So I think with this high level of uncertainty, like Joe said, you will see PMO as a service will boom a lot.
Increasing.
It doesn't need to be a company. It could be a person providing support to an organization.
Yeah, we've already identified we live in a gig economy, right? So people are used to actually being outsourced resources now. Another thing that ties into this, I think, is we as an industry are starting to finally shine a spotlight on PMOs, right? It's been the project management office, the program management office, the portfolio. We can't even agree on what the name is, right? But it's PMO.
Yeah.
So as a PMO influencer, right, what am I doing to influence our industry? And I developed purpose-driven PMO. And PMO, we're rebranding it to be purpose, measure, optimize, right? It doesn't matter your methodology of agile or traditional or hybrid. What is your purpose of a delivery organization for your company? How are you doing? Let's measure it. And then let's optimize, right? This chaos that we're in has taught us that optimization is important. And prior to this, we would never optimize. We would keep the same process. We would keep the same team. And we would hope that we would get better, right? How would we get better with the same people and the same process? So if we focus on optimization to say that's actually a critical component of our PMO, it forces us like a professional sports team that we have to get better, right? We're cheering, right? When the team that we root for has a bad player, what do we say? We said, let's get a better player in there, right? We don't ask them to keep the same player. Now, I know our employees and our teammates, we build relationships, right? And we want to be with them. But if our goal, working as a department within the organization, is to help to hit strategic goals, aren't we obligated to have the best team possible to help our organization do that? And if that best team equals PMO as a service, aren't we obligated to do that? So for me, shining the spotlight on the PMO as a delivery organization that's focused on purpose, focused on measure, focused on optimize, this is innovation, right? This is how we're influencing the world we live in. And to me, that's the important stuff we've got to talk about.
I think what you're saying is also a great entryway or segue into what are your recommendations for someone that is just starting off their career in terms of PMO or project or program management? What based on your experiences, with your own employees or with others, what would you recommend for someone that's just about to embark on this career? Whether it be PMO as a service or project or program or portfolio management. Rami, any thoughts?
Yeah, I always, part of me doing career coaching, I get asked this question very often from new graduates and people venturing into the project management, just our juniors in the project management. So for me, I truly believe if you want to learn, you have to start in a coordinator role. Because when you are in a coordinator role, you will get exposed to the various aspects of project management or portfolio management and program management. So you will be a generalizing specialist in 2 to 3 years' time in this position, and you will make sense of estimates, you will make sense of documentations, you will make sense of schedules, timelines, all sorts of management knowledge areas. So, I mean, your exposure when you're working as a coordinator is so much wide because you deal with so many people. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, for me, I think that's a great start. And everybody has to have, to me, a career path, right? First of all, it's your career. It's not your boss's, right? So everybody should own their own career path.
Yeah.
And to me, the number one thing that everybody can do, regardless if you're a coordinator or the PMO director, is have a mentor, right? When you have a mentor, you get informal guidance, training, tips, a way to interact and just bounce ideas off somebody without having the pressure of a boss, right? So to this day, I still have mentors and I also do mentoring, right? But every step of your journey, somebody has been there before you. So take the time to meet those people and get their wisdom and try to learn from their mistakes. Again, there's a lot of knowledge and mistakes we've all made, but it's certainly better when you can learn from somebody else's mistakes before your own, right? So start, as Rami says, right? Start as a coordinator within the project management space, but also own your career path, find a mentor, and be responsible, right? Empower yourself to go build your own career.
And I totally agree with Joe. I personally have a mentor too. I had a mentor, I still have a mentor, and I do mentorship for so many people as well. At some point, some people do feel shy having a mentor, but I personally find it to be so much beneficial because, like Joe said, somebody can at least give you a heads up about what they learned. And even if you want to try it yourself, at least you have heads up what might happen and you might avoid it if it's something negative, for example.
Another thing I'll mention is when I said my introduction at the beginning, one thing I didn't mention is I'm also managing director for the PMO Global Survey that we have through the PMO Global Alliance. And this year we did our first survey. We'll have the results coming out probably in early December. But one of the questions we asked about was mentorship. So we have an idea of how many PMO leaders out there have mentors, and the number is not as high as it should be. And then the other question that I thought was interesting for this context is what was your role before you became a PMO manager? And a very high number said they were a project manager, right? So we're promoting PMs into manager roles within the PMO. But I'll ask both of you, right? What is the training to be a PMO manager? There's a PMP certification, right? There's a CAPM certification. There's the other organizations, out there for PM certifications and Scrum certifications, right, from the Agile world. how do we train and educate our PMO leaders to be successful? If you're a PM that's promoted up, how do we help them succeed?
You have a really good point. In fact, when I'm building my team, you'll find a lot of folks that have project management certifications, but they're very focused on one particular area, not necessarily the entire department, right? So I think that's an art, and a lot of us, I'll speak for myself. We become accidental PMO leaders. And then we start gaining, we have some sort of core skill sets, and then we have a mentor, like you mentioned, or in my case, I had multiple mentors that I was fortunate to work with. But I think you have a sweet spot here where this PMO Global Alliance can perhaps fill, right? Providing some sort of guide for folks that are not just accidental PMO leaders, but they want to actually look and learn from experts, right? Such as yourself. Both of you have gone through this, and that's something that can be contributed back to help the community, right? So I think that's a really great point you bring up, Joe and Rami. I think we're going to run out of time soon, but I wanted to just open it up to you guys. Any questions you guys or thoughts that you guys want to bring up to the table? I mean, the world is, the table's wide open. Anything you want to bring up, or questions, or anything you want to ask each other?
I mean, Joe, do you want to start?
Yeah, my first initial thought is we have a great responsibility on our shoulders in the PMO space, because we're responsible for the delivery of our organizational strategy. And if you look at all of the metrics that are out there on how well we do at project execution and project delivery, we're not doing a good job. Right? We're, the best of the surveys have us at 55 or 60% success. So my challenge to our industry is, what are we going to do differently? Right? If we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same results. So we have to look to innovation like PMO as a service, and to purpose-driven PMO, and to other innovations that are still to be determined, right? Still to be found. We have to break free of the barriers that we've built for ourselves, right? And focus on, or stop focusing on, I'm agile and you're waterfall, I'm right and you're wrong. No, we're both delivery. Yeah. And what's right is that we do a good project, right? That's what we're focused on. Rami, what do you think?
I totally agree with you. The most important thing is, at the end of the day, you deliver value. Whether you deliver value using agile, hybrid, or waterfall, it doesn't matter. And to your point, Joe, of being innovative, I totally agree. I get asked the question, what's your opinion of the AI taking over the role of PMOs? Well, my opinion is that can't happen 100%. It's going to be a hybrid approach. Some functions can be taken over by artificial intelligence. Some you can't just let go of the human factor. Yeah. So I think part of the innovation and how innovative we have to be is to figure out a way how we can blend the mix between artificial intelligence to make the best use of it and the human factor, so both of them can be a powerful recipe for a successful PMO and delivery team.
Yeah, and I think also another, we talked about the power skills, the people skills, influencing and motivating. Neurobehavioral studies into project management, right? Helping us understand the fight or flight. As a project manager, too often we're afraid to call a project red because of the repercussions to my performance review. How am I going to get a good performance review if all my projects are red? Well, to me, I'd rather have them be red and truthful than green and dishonest, right? So we have to look at how can we help motivate people to trust the decisions they're making that actually benefit and provide, like Rami said, provide value back to the company. Calling a red project green that provides no value, right? So we have to look at the human mind and how we make decisions and how we behave. That's the breakthroughs that we need, right? Earth has been doing project management since Earth has had people, right? So AI is not going to replace the people. They're going to help us, right? They're going to help us be better than we are. but you know, we're going to go to Mars, and a person is going to be the program manager over that. And we have to understand the psyche of the individual team members to make sure we can adapt to years in space for a mission, right? And so those are the innovations we need to look for, right? I'm excited. I think that we're scratching the surface of what we're going to find in the project management world. And PMOs, right, as the function that's responsible for that, we're going to lead the charge. We're the leaders of the future of all, right, the project economy, as PMI is calling it. Well, guess who's leading that charge? The PMO. What a great place to be in for the future. I'm excited.
You guys are both very inspirational. I'm ready to like jump on my car right now. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the human factor, people, the culture of an organization. I mean, those things are, I think, overarching. You know, having a culture that celebrates continuous improvement, having a culture that celebrates problem solving. You know, and you can't just have a culture that hides things under the rug and be effective, right? So I love this concept of the human factor, the people, the culture. So I think it's very gratifying. And I think what you have contributed in your space into the community, I think it's about the people, right? So thank you so much. Any last thoughts before we conclude, unless there's anything else?
I think I had one last item. And one is this conference that we're at, right, is another example of how we can use people to better our profession, right? Through the app that we're using, I've had more individual conversations with people from around the world than I've had before in the last 2 months. And I think that these sorts of conferences that aren't just a one-time and done, right? It's not just a 2-week conference. There's an app to keep this conversation going forever. I am so thankful that we have that opportunity to do that, right? Lots of growth and opportunity for all of us through sharing within the community itself.
I totally agree with you, Joe. Totally agree. I am very thankful. And this was a brilliant idea. This app, it was really a brilliant idea. I'm learning a lot from so many different opinions. And I'm contributing as well and discussing with so many people virtually and building relationships and promoting PMOs. It's really fantastic. I totally agree.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rami, for your valuable thoughts and insights. It's been a pleasure. I want to thank the PMO Global Alliance for having us. Thank you, Americo. And we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.